Welcome to Surviving the Side Hustle podcast, the place where expert-based business owners learn how to build momentum, avoid burnout, and create sustainable success on their own terms. I'm your host, Rob Tracy, strength and conditioning specialist turned founder and CEO of Prime Performance Coaching, the personal performance strategy firm for high-achieving business owners and operators. I partner with driven entrepreneurs to implement the Prime Performance process, an awareness-based operating system that's helped me and countless solopreneurs and small business owners evolve from just being high performers on the edge of burnout to prime performers building sustainable success. The impact of Prime Performance process has led me here, where I'll show you how to get unstuck and design your own Prime Performance life without sacrificing your health, relationships, or sanity. So whether you're hustling after hours or scaling your passion project, today and here, you're going to get real stories, science-backed strategies, and practical frameworks to help you excel every step of your journey. It's time. Let's get intentional, build momentum, and become prime performers together. We'll get started just after this message. If you're an ambitious business owner or side hustler who's ready for a breakthrough, tired of spinning your wheels, looking to slide past burnout and build real momentum, I'd love to invite you to book a free Prime Performance strategy session with me or one of our strategists. This is your chance to get personalized insight on what's been holding you back and get a clear path to move forward. No fluff, just actionable strategy. So if you're interested, visit survivingthesidehustle.com/free call to request your spot now. Again, that's survivingthesidehustle.com/free call. Looking forward to helping you become a prime performer. What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Surviving the Side Hustle. I'm super excited today because we've got Vinny Brusco on today, and he's a longtime friend of mine, but he's also a lifelong communicator, podcaster, and the founder of Agora, which is a space and platform really built around real conversations, personal growth, and navigating the messiness of today's modern life. And just a quick little background, Vincent's journey started long before podcasting was even really a thing. He started in college radio, and I think he said board op-in at K-Rock, to recording raw conversations on CDs, and eventually evolving into deep interviews, self-reflection, and community building. So today's episode, I'm excited to dive in, hear a bit about his story. Plan is to talk about entrepreneurship, internal dialogue, imposter phenomenon, and why discomfort isn't something to avoid and how it's actually something to learn how to move through. So Vinny, man, welcome to the show.
Dude, thank you. What a beautiful introduction. Thank you. It's weird to hear all that stuff. You know, you don't really, you don't sit on your own resume very often. So thank you for the kind words. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And, it's actually kind of funny because a mutual friend of ours, Brandon Godoris, him and his speaker school, they just hit we were celebrating the 4-year anniversary of that. And when it first kicked off, we used to do this exercise called What Else? And I used to love it because I would just give me an opportunity just to like scream and get everybody hyped up. But it's really uncomfortable because you have to come up with 3 things to brag about yourself. And it can't be a humble brag. It's got to be like a real brag.
Ooh.
So that would always get everybody like out of their comfort zone. So yeah, so it's always fun to do that.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Humble brags are one thing, but really being braggadocious about others is a totally different experience.
Yeah. So I kind of want to dive in, and I mentioned in the intro there that you've really loved radio and communicating since you were a kid. I think you said you were used to like record on a tape recorder before even CDs and such. So I want to ask or start the conversation really, what was it about talk and conversation and communication that really had you hooked at an early age?
You know, I didn't start talking till very late in life. And I think my mom jokingly says like I was just taking everything in and just receiving everything that was around me. And I think it was just for me in hindsight, it's the authenticity, but really it's part of the unknown. And as you become a seeker of the unknown, whether it be spiritual, entrepreneurial, physical, the unknown unfolds in a certain way. And I think that one of the rawest ways of unfolding the unknown is through conversation. And I just think that it's just been a part of who I am. Like you had said in the intro so kindly, I did worked in college radio. It's always been a passion of mine. I've always just been obsessed with radio. I actually just last night I was listening to old air clips for me when I was doing morning in traffic at one of the radio stations I worked at, and overnight on air bits and stuff. And I've just always loved radio. I just always loved it. It was just something I was always intrigued by. And I think it's just a perfect unfolding of the unknown. And it's just, I guess, the gift that I've been given.
Nice. Yeah, man. I mean, I love that. And it's extra cool, I guess, when you can kind of lean into that gift at an earlier age and you get to kind of experience it and go through it and enjoy it, I guess, a little bit more. And I think about it, how sad it is sometimes that people just kind of working their 9 to 5 job just to pay the bills, just to kind of do what everyone's telling them they're supposed to do. And they wake up and they're dragging life because they're not really doing anything that they're really meant to be doing. And it's kind of sad in a way. So it's extra encouraging and exciting to see someone who's kind of been aligned or at least walked down the same path of what you're meant to be doing at an earlier age.
Yeah, the key word there is alignment. And I think a lot of people navigate away from alignment due to comfort and convenience. And it's hard to step on a path of alignment. It's not comfortable. And a lot of people, I think it's you have to kind of explore to see who you are, right? What comes up, what feels aligned, right? What feels aligned and is aligned and actually aligned and realistically is aligned are all very different things. But what is authentically aligned is one of the guiding factors of how I try my best to move forward. I call it following the golden thread. And it's this feeling that pulls you to become the best version of yourself because, and you know it, right? When you're in the grind mode, it's one thing you can grind for so long, but when you're called, it's a totally different piece. And I think that's part and parcel with alignment.
Yeah, and I love that you said that too, because I had a question here that I wanted to kind of ask about that because like most like going back to what we were just saying, so many people go through life just kind of flowing through it and they don't really step into who they're really meant to be. You're talking about alignment here. And I know one point you had told me that you started to kind of shift what you were doing, kind of shaping your voice, I guess you should say. And you started doing more reflective, like self-development kind of conversations that you would even record while you were just driving. So like
Yeah.
what drove that evolution and how did that help you kind of shape your own voice?
It's a great question. It's amazing reflective point. The podcast that I do now, the Council of Dudes, had so many different iterations. It was me with two other guys. It was very shock jockey, a sign of the times, the attitude era in wrestling, Opie and Anthony, Howard Stern. I loved all that stuff. And the show was that for a long time. We parted ways. We kind of took on different formats. And then I got away from it for a little while. And I just had this inkling to just start recording on my way to the gym at like 5 in the morning. I'd be driving, and it really became like an audio journal in a lot of ways. And I was just posting it, and I would get some really nice feedback from people saying like, "Yeah, I resonate with that. I understand where you're coming from. That kind of vibes in a sense." And I didn't realize that I was really on this journey of self discovery. I was really leaning into the unearthing of who I am as a person, and then I wanted to hear other people's stories. I really was like, all right, well, if I'm going through this, everyone's have to be going through this, right? It has to be experienced. It's universal. And I started kind of reaching out to people to do podcasts and just have those conversations. And what started as just my own self-reflection of learning more about myself became finding that commonality amongst people who have walked the journey just kind of selfishly to learn almost like where are the booby traps in this thing and how can I seemingly avoid them, which, we learn you really can't.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, yeah, not really, not on your own actually. If you have like a coach or a mentor or something, they can usually help you avoid some of those booby traps, but
Sure.
life it kind of gets in the way. And I'm a huge fan of journaling or reflecting practice just in general, whether it is kind of like voicing out, which by the way, for me, a new kind of thing is I will either do like a transcript or like a recording voice note, and then I'll transcribe it, and then I'll use ChatGPT to kind of reflect on saying like, hey, what have I been talking about a lot recently? So I can kind of see like what's really been on top of my mind. And that's pretty cool because that teaches you so many different lessons. And I know you've been through a lot of different phases, and I know we're going to get into some of your like professional things you got going on just a little bit, but I want to ask, like, thinking about your own personal phases and how you've kind of evolved as a communicator and professional and as a person too. What do you think you're reflecting on this most recent phase? If you could kind of think or shine some light on, what do you think that is?
I think I think it depends on what category we're talking about. Being a dad is a self-reflective phase at pretty much all moments. Being a business owner, entrepreneur is a whole different category. Being a husband's a whole different category. Two things that I think have been coming up for me more recently on the business side of things is that alignment piece, but really confirmation through, I'll call it the 3D reality that we live in. I remember this was probably a few months back at this stage of the game, but I remember getting into bed with my wife one night and saying, wow, for the first time in a long time, I don't feel delusional. Like the world was validating because we all seek validation in different places, but the world was validating what I was internally and externally seeking, right? Building a business about this and that. So that's one thing. I think the other part of it is when it comes to just as a dad, which or father, dad, whatever terminology, it varies. I've been thinking a lot about how my kids are going to look at me when I pass, when I die. And, I thought about this actually just the other day. I was like, I really want my kids to miss me, but not in this like gut wrenching sense, but in this real like, man, like my dad was awesome. Like, what he was so full of like joy and love and happiness. And I think those are really important motivators in a lot of ways. Like you could look at them like, oh, it's super depressing. Why would you want to think about your death? But it's memento mori, right? This whole idea of like reflect on that. Like that's a real fuel for how you show up today. So when I get impatient with my kids and I want to lose my mind in the morning when I get them ready for school, what are they going to remember, right? What are they going to reflect on? So those are two like reflection points that I've been really sitting on in the last, I'd say like 2 weeks, probably like almost a month now. And I tend to do that. I'll sit on something for like 2, 3 months, chew on it, really see what it means to me in these different areas of my life and try to, internalize that and bring it to the space I'm in.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm sure your kids will.
Thanks.
Like to be totally open and vulnerable. Like it was my dad's birthday like a couple weekends ago. First time I cried in probably a while. I was just sitting down, listening to old music, watching music videos that he used to really like, and just thinking back because I'm coming up on the ninth year anniversary in a couple of months of him passing. So it never gets easier, but yeah, those feelings of like, damn, yeah, my dad was cool. Like, I wish he was still around. I wish I could have just hang with him. I wish he could see who I'm kind of turning into and stuff like that. But you had mentioned, let me switch back over here. You had mentioned a second ago about how you didn't feel delusional for the first time
Yeah.
and this like kind of dialogue. Um, and like that could be a big challenge for a lot of people. And it's people battle with like imposter phenomenon all the time. There's constantly depressed from reflecting on the past and anxious for worrying about the future. Because I know you've mentioned before that internal dialogue has been something like a big thing for you to kind of work through.
Yeah.
When did you first become aware of that dialogue?
I think the catalyst for me was sensory deprivation. I'm a big advocate of it, and I've done it a fair share amount. And I remember it was the first time I ever floated. It was right before I did, and I wanted to book an appointment, and I was hesitant. I was like, I don't know, and I stopped, and it was like there's like a real, obviously I'm talking about. So it was a real moment, and I said, "What are you afraid of?" And what came up for me was, I'm afraid of what I'm gonna think. And instantly, the rebuttal to that was, you're thinking it anyway. Whether you're conscious of it or not, those thoughts are operating in your subconscious mind. So either you're going to bring them to the forefront and you're going to interact with them, good, bad, or ugly, or they're going to control your life. And in that moment, I booked the call and went and floated. And floating has really given me this outsider's perspective that I am the observer of my thoughts. The thoughts are the thoughts, and they're going to come and they're going to go, and some are going to be really beautiful and some are going to be absolutely horrendous. And that's part of being a human. But floating has been a huge catalyst for me in having the space and the capacity to just observe my thoughts as thoughts. Not always are easy, easier said than done, but it was definitely a tool that I used because you do. I mean, these things run your life and you don't even realize it.
Yeah, no, that's definitely powerful stuff because yeah, your thoughts kind of create how affect how you feel and how you show up, and then that's how you show up has how you act and becomes your personality, and it's like who you are, and it really all starts from that, from your thoughts and how you control those, and or how you can at least observe those. And so I think that's powerful to kind of talk about there.
Yeah, they create your reality. Your thoughts have the power of creating your reality, and whatever you're telling yourself. How many people do you know identify and they'll just say, "Oh, well, I'm just this person," right? And that's like an identity, and that's how they navigate the world, and that is their reality based off of an experience that created a thought that now has created an identity.
Yeah, I mean, I see it a lot of times with like individuals who default into playing victim, and then they're like externally like, oh, I can't do that because of X, Y, and Z, instead of like trying to figure out a way to control it, or at least control themselves when they can't necessarily control
That's
other
the key
things.
part. Yeah, controlling yourself in that is huge.
So let me ask you, so like when things are going less than desirable, let's say, because we all have good
Sure.
days and bad days, like how do you reframe it and how do you like pull yourself out of not spiraling into doubt and more negativity then?
It's so case by case. It's honestly it's so case by case. And there are so many times where I don't pull up right before crashing as quickly as I'd like to. I use the surfing analogy quite often, right? You're gonna catch a wave, you're gonna ride that wave. It may be a great wave to ride and it may last for X amount of time, but at some point it's gonna crash. Like that's what waves just do. It's really about how quickly you rebound, how quickly you and not just rebound for the sake of rebounding, not just like, all right, I'm back, I got this. It's like really sitting in that discomfort of like, all right, the wave has crashed, paddled back out, and I'm waiting for this next wave, right? When do I authentically feel it versus like forcing yourself to just take the next one that's not the right one? Um, it's so case by case, man. I really allow myself to be uncomfortable. If I'm having a bad week, a bad day, a bad stretch or a bad season of life, I sit on it. I just sit and I'm like, all right, this is not optimal right now, but I'm not going to force myself to do something or be a part. Like I just have to sit in this discomfort and just kind of keep my for the right wave that's going to come. And eventually, by the grace of God, it does.
Yeah, it's, you got to have a little bit of faith and you got to have patience too, I feel like. And some of the like, these are some pretty good like characteristics or traits, I guess you could say, as like founders and leaders, because you're creating things, you have to believe that there's a bigger picture and view and things there. So as you continue to grow, and so does as Agora grows and stuff too, like how do you show up as like that like how do you show up as a leader here? How are you leaning into some of that?
Not allowing the micro steps to be dismissed, right? Like you could have this big picture in your mind of everything that you think something's going to be, right? Let's just take Agora because we're talking about it. I have this vision of what it's going to be. I know what it's going to be, right? At its biggest and at today. And like there's this big gap in between the world of like those two realities. And it's so important to not only focus on that bigger picture, but also not be so granular that you lose sight of what that bigger picture is. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's such a hard thing to do. And as a leader of that, me and my business partner, my family, whatever capacity that leadership role comes into play with this, it's really just staying true to what that bigger thing is, but on a bigger level, not just like the business, but like the calling, the thing that pulls you forward. It's like honoring that to the best of my ability every single day. And that's not always easy. It's not always optimal, but I feel as though as long as I stay in that alignment piece, then I am showing up as the best leader I can be in that given moment with that given situation.
Yeah, I want to kind of like bring it out a little bit further here. And can you explain a little bit more about what your alignment kind of looks like? So, like for yourself, how do you know that you are still staying in alignment?
It's only a feeling. It's there's no because there's no part of my goal for this year was to live a life of abundance through alignment grounded in peace and joy. And for me, I've experienced all of those things, right? I've experienced peace, I've experienced abundance, I've experienced alignment, but it's only that I could extrapolate that feeling. And it's not in business, it's in life. Like I felt peace in my life with my wife, or I felt alignment as a dad, but I could take the essence of what that feels like and bring it into business and say, okay, is this aligned for me? Does this feel like alignment? No, it doesn't. Okay, and I'll question that all day long. I'll sit there like, I'll wrestle with that. Like, maybe I'm overthinking it or I'm underthinking it. But it's more than a gut feeling. It's a true embodiment of a feeling. So it's really hard to like put it on a thing. But for me, it's just this feeling that is undeniably outside of myself. And just stepping into that in all those different facets is something I'm just constantly working on and trying to like fine tune that frequency.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. And I kind of have a curveball question for you. So I apologize if this is a little
No,
weird or whatnot, but
throw 'em. I
because
love weird.
you said that you're really trying to embrace and live in peace, alignment, and joy this year. Like, because I'm kind of like in that ballpark of like you can't really appreciate the sunny days unless you go through and are grateful also for some of the rainy days.
Yeah.
So like how do you still enjoy joy? Like how are you like what happens like how do you find some of those like cloudy days, I guess I should say? Like is it just like where do those cloudy days kind of come up, I guess?
It's always cloudy. Even on a day like today where it's super sunny. Dude, I find myself, and maybe it's a default. I don't know where it comes from. I find myself, and actually, I talked to my therapist about this. I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I'm constantly in really bad positions, like constantly, like for no reason. I find myself, I'm like, I'm really in a shit position now. I don't know if it's just the fact that I enjoy the darkness. I don't know if I just enjoy the fear of it. It's almost like I seek it in a sense, but I find that it's part of it. Like it's the discomfort of being an entrepreneur, the discomfort of having someone mount you and smother you with their gi, and you're literally looking for a pocket of air that's like this big. You're like, if I could just find this one little pocket of air, I could see light and I could breathe. I have a fight. I could just, I'm alive. And I think that, if you say in this kind of bird's nest, like, okay, everything's good, like it's a part of it. Like the discomfort. I was actually having this conversation just before this. The discomfort of all of this is a part of it, right? The discomfort of being an entrepreneur, the discomfort of any part of it is a part of it, just as much as the fun is. So you can't expect all the glory, right? You can't expect like, oh yeah, everything's going great. Um, without a lot of the discomfort. And I think you have to just settle into the sheer fact that it's gonna be uncomfortable. And that's okay.
Yeah, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier about kind of like finding yourself. And if you're not, I feel like personally, if you're not challenging yourself one way or another, whether it is personally or professionally or if you're not challenging yourself, you're just like coasting. And I see a lot of people in today's world who do fall into that just kind of coasting. They work all day and then they just come home and then they're just totally distracted with social media, with Netflix on, all this other stuff. And that's pulling them away, keeping them disconnected from who they really are. And I think when you can learn to embrace that discomfort like you're talking about, that helps you kind of shine the light on the different areas of yourself because at the very least it shows you your boundaries where like how much you can handle, like how far you can push without having any air or whatever it may be. So I think that's important, and like embracing the discomfort teaches you a lot of different things. So for yourself, other than like the grit and what else you can kind of keep going and pushing through, what have you most recently learned about yourself or that you're kind of growing into?
I'm a lot more resilient than I ever would have given myself credit for. You know, I'll just again I'll use it in the business context. In high school, when we were making plans during the week and they'd be like, what do we, or even like whenever people like, what are we doing? I'm like, I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. And that was always my default too. And in business and really life in general, right? Business is such a perfect mirror for life and parenting and all that. We'll figure it out is such a powerful tool and word track and pivot point that just gets dismissed as like, oh, you don't know what you're doing, or you fly by night, or you're building the plane as you're flying it. Yes, but we'll figure it out also is so grounded in confidence that I didn't realize. And that confidence is another form of like resiliency. So that's like one of a more recent discovery that I've had where I was like, oh, this is like, I could fucking hold my breath for a while. And I really would have thought I would have, suffocated a long time ago.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm kind of in that same kind of category where it's like I've always looked for some challenge. It's like I just always think it's kind of beautiful. You get to experience all the different emotions. Like, yeah, this shit is really hard. Like, oh, this is tough. Like, sports was always easy for me because you got to experience the joy and excitement when you win. But then when you lose with your team and you still put in the effort. And even when you don't put in the effort, you get to feel some of that guilt. And you're like, oh, shit, I'm not trying as hard as my teammates and stuff like that. So, yeah. And so, like, why do you think so many people do that where like what I was saying before, where they just kind of like disconnect and go home and they avoid that discomfort so much because maybe they just don't know that this is where you grow and you get better, or like talk to me about that. Why do you think people avoid it so like the plague?
I think it's just due to
Do do.
it's due to it is due to no it's due to I think experience. I think a lot of people pull from past experience. You can call them traumas, whatever you want to call them, but you pull from these past experiences that you had, and I think you automatically um allocate them to the current stage of your life, right? It's survival, right? It's a form of survival. If you've had some traumatic experience of your life, you're not going to kind of want to step back into that space, right? That discomfort. So I think people get comfortable. I think people seek comfort naturally as most of us do. And it's a way to just turn it off, man. I really, unfortunately, don't turn it off, and that's not me like, oh, I'm all about grunt work and David Goggins. And like, no, I legitimately, I get that. And I resonate with that. But for me, it's like, I don't turn it off. There's no doubt, like this is my downtime. Like this is my relaxing, right? It's like doing another podcast before this, and I enjoy it. I really thoroughly enjoy it. So when you start to step into alignment and step into who you are and learn who you are and be okay breaking the idea of who you were, like losing the identity of who you were and stepping into this new version of yourself, and it's in a path of alignment. It's a totally different feeling. You don't want to sit on the couch and watch Netflix or consume things that aren't going to move you forward, right? Like when you start training, whatever that is for you, all of a sudden you want to eat better because you want to show up better, and you want to sleep better because you want to show up better. And it becomes like this ecosystem of the self that you now have a new relationship with. It's like, I don't want to waste time watching fucking some shit on Netflix that's going to make me feel worse. Like it's energy. It's like an energy that I don't need to give out to. And that could be for people, things you read, things you watch, what you're listening to. It's all an energetic exchange. And when you start to value that energetic exchange at a very high level, and you know how important it is, you don't want to just give it away to Netflix.
Hey, sorry for the interruption. It's me, Rob, and I hope you're enjoying today's conversation. But I wanted to remind you, if you're a driven entrepreneur or an expert-based business owner who wants to get unstuck, create sustainable momentum, and really start moving forward, I've got a free resource just for you. You can download my 5 keys to clarity and momentum. It's a PDF guide. It's a quick read, and it'll help you cut through the noise, clarify your next steps, and start building the systems that you need for sustainable success. So if you're new here, or if you haven't grabbed it yet, this is the first step to applying these principles in your own journey. So head over to survivingthesidehustle.com/5 keys and download your free copy today. Again, that's survivingthesidehustle.com/5 keys. Right. Yeah, I agree with that because you're just kind of like throwing it to them and like keep it for yourself, keep these energy flowing and feed back into other people too.
Yeah.
That's the best way. And I think you do that through having the like the honest conversations, like being open and being able like one with yourself and then two with other people too. And I think that ends up becoming like a performance edge for yourself, like kind of like what you were saying, like funnel it back into yourself, feed into it. You show up with your food, your goals, your motivation, all that stuff. And it just kind of like compounds itself, like you were saying there.
Yeah, but you can't be staunch about it either. I mean, I'm all like, listen, if a new season of Game of Thrones, not the current one that's out, but like a real Game of Thrones that comes out, or something that's like, I love, like, I'll turn it on. Of course, I'm not gonna not watch anything. I'm never gonna watch. It's insane, right? But it's just about how often are you giving. Like, you have to start to fine tune the things you really want to give your energy to, and and that becomes really important, especially like for me. I'm a used to be a very big video game guy, and I can get, I mean, wrapped up in, like, I had to literally like cold turkey stop playing video games unless I'm playing like Super Mario with my kids, because I'll just get like consumed till for hours.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that kind of goes back to like intentionality, like having
Yeah.
that, like, and you can't really have intentions without that awareness component. Because if you're just like blindly wasting hours and hours and days playing games or like anything at all, then you don't really know, like, oh, maybe I should dial this back a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, and then also the intentionality behind it of, um, who you're looking to become, right? Like, what version
Yeah.
of you do you wanna be? You know, I talked about it earlier when I said about my kids, when they look back, how are they gonna reflect on me? You know, my son had to do a Father's Day project, and one of the questions, like, "What's your dad's favorite food?" It was like, "Steak." I'm like, "Good answer, spot on." And then they said, "What is your dad's favorite dessert?" And my kid wrote, "My dad doesn't eat dessert." I mean, dude, I love cookies and milk and ice cream, but like the vast majority of time when, you know, that's the key. They don't see me glomming down bonbons in the kitchen at night, you know?
Yeah. Well, so I want to talk a little bit more about Agora. So can
Yeah.
you give us like where's it at now and where's it going? Because I know there's some cool stuff for that.
Yeah, Agora is a men's modern day social club. So I'll give you the quick short story of it. Facilitating a men's group for the last 7 years, and doing it in various places. I came to realize there's no actual place for guys to have these bigger conversations that I think a lot of them are missing and seeking. Uh, in throughout all of that, I realized this didn't exist. And so often our own problems become what we want to create and bring to the world. And a year ago, I opened Agora, which was the meeting place in ancient Greece where the philosophers would go. It was the town center. And I wanted to build a community of like-minded men who wanted to grow and become better versions of themselves in a multitude of different ways. And right now, we're located in Larchmont in a small 200 square foot location. But we do dads groups, men's groups. It's a community space, workspace. So members get key fobs. They come, they do work. We're starting a book club next month. We do breath work, 5Ks, ruck walks, all health and wellness, and trying to find like-minded men. We are currently in an amazing phase. Again, kind of going back to that point of delusional. Never thought I'd be on the calls that I'm on, having the conversations that I'm having with people. But we're in a massive expansion, looking to open a 6,100 square foot location in Westchester, where it's community space. We've partnered with Soundshed Studios, who are the guys who built Joe Rogan's Experience Studio, the podcast studio. So they're going to be building out the podcast space in Agora. Uh, Gym, cold plunge, sensory deprivation, got to honor that. Sauna, barber shop, jujitsu and yoga mats, healthy food, lounge area, coffee bar. So it's really going to be a one-stop shop for guys to go to, and check all their boxes so that when they do leave, they can go home and they can just feel present and compartmentalize their lives a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. And because that's like a one-stop shop for men everywhere. And that's just like a cool place too, because you got everything in there that you need. And I'm excited for that to kind of finish up and get open. So
Hear me both.
yeah, yeah, I bet. And before you started kind of explaining there about it a bit, you had mentioned delusional again, and that kind of had me thinking. about the conversation earlier when we were talking about like the darkness and that inner voice and stuff like that. I just wanted to kind of come back to this and make a point on it that like sometimes that inner dialogue and voice and delusional and even like narcissistic traits and psychopathy, all those things, like it's all on a spectrum. Like even some of those stuff to see that can really play to your advantage, and using that kind of dark side like for positive things are good. And I feel like that is something powerful to kind of like share on. Can you share a little bit about maybe leaning into the dark side, I guess?
Yeah, it gives you an opportunity to learn yourself on a much deeper level. Peeling back those layers and layers and layers of yourself, you're just kind of reverse engineering the way you think and therefore the way you show up. And it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to sit in silence, right? It's uncomfortable to sit in meditation or prayer or journal and then look back and read it or feel it and be like, oh God, like it's very uncomfortable to sit. But in that discomfort is growth, and I think we touched upon it a little bit, like that's how you just grow. It really is. I mean, there's no easy way to it. And it's so much self-doubt and imposter syndrome comes up when you're doing anything, and forget about building a business, right? It's again, but it's part of it. Like it has to be there has to be resistance to what you're looking to do, or else it's not worth it. If it was just easy. I mean, we've had a major curveball thrown at us, my partner and I, and we're on the phone, and it was just like literally set us back. And I'm like, all right, we're like, you have your moment. It sucks, but we're gonna figure it out. And you just pivot and you start, and you touched upon like the people. Who do I know who not gonna solve this problem for me, but who could put me on the right path? Who can kind of re-steer this ship a little bit? And you start to reach out to people and go, all right, this is what I'm going through. This is who is a resource, and who can I give to, and who can I receive from in this truly energetic exchange, right? Not like I'm going to take, but who can I give? Who can I receive? And it's weird, man. It's weird to navigate your own thoughts and sit in the discomfort of the darkness, but it's powerful too.
Yeah, it definitely is powerful. And I feel like that's another reason why I'm so excited for Agora to kind of open up again, because think about the impact that it's going to create for so many other individuals, where they can kind of lean into it, and people can kind of exercise some of these practices of dealing with these internal feelings and beliefs and stuff, and have these uncomfortable conversations with themselves and others, so that they don't have to do the whole discovery alone and
Yeah.
challenging, right?
Yeah, dude. I mean, one of the most powerful things that I've experienced, and it happens not every group, but a lot of the groups that we do, the men's group, the dad's groups, is someone's going through something and someone else went through something like it, and they're having, I mean, I've seen a a man and another man have a conversation with each other seemingly as their child and their father. I don't know if that makes sense, right? But they, like, this guy went through this stuff with his dad, this guy went through stuff with his daughter, and they were having this conversation with each other as if they were talking to their other person. And it was like, and the whole room felt it. And it was like, oh, these guys need to have this talk right now. Like, he needs to talk to his dad and he needs to talk to his daughter, and it's happening through each other. And it's so amazingly powerful when you could leave a space and someone texts you and says, man, was I too much tonight? You're like, no, man, you needed that. And dude, it's such a blessing. It really is. I get chills just thinking about it. It's such a blessing, and I feel so honored. I jokingly call Agora my Noah's Ark, because I do feel that this is something bigger than just a business. It's a calling. It's a calling to be able to create this space for guys. And I know you said, I mean, people, there's a reluctancy, especially as men, to step into that vulnerability piece. But when you're amongst 8, 10, 12, 4 strangers, and you guys all start unpacking your shit, it's like, man, I'm not alone going through this. Whatever it is, someone else is, the leaves and the branches might be different and it's expressed in different ways, but the root of the problem is the same. And there's just some comfort in knowing that I'm not alone.
Yeah, I like that. I guess that's like who Agora is really for, right? Someone who's kind of like looking to better themselves, connect with more people, and like who benefits the most from being a part of Agora?
Me. And I mean that on an emotional sense, man. This is something that, again, it's such a calling. But I mean, dude, it's any guy. It's any and women too, man. Like, you know how many wives have sent their husbands here? Like, how'd you hear about us? Oh, my wife told me. Kids, I mean, society in general, and I hate to make it so grandiose because it's like, all right, dude, calm down. That's what comes up in my mind. But I mean, if we're just better human beings, right? If we could walk around the world as better human beings because we're having conversation, because we're interfacing with ourselves, because we're meeting new people and giving people the empathy and the grace that we all deserve and want and expect to receive, but don't give it out, right? So, I mean, it's anybody that is looking to just grow as a human being. Any guy that's looking to grow as a human being and be better at husbands, sons, fathers, any role that they play in society, employees. It's changed my life for sure, just building that community.
Yeah, I love that because the whole idea of getting better and changing in evolution is so powerful. And, what I've experienced and witnessed for myself, at least as I've continued to grow and evolve my coaching and things as well, is like my definitions of things change. So I feel like that's a perfect way for me to ask you here is like, how has how has the definition of success really changed for you from when you first started Agora to like where you're going and what you're doing now?
You know what? It's weird because it hasn't. Right? There's like 3D validation success that I think that we are always seeking. And that's constantly, it's like this elusive thing that's always moving, right? It's always like, oh, this thing, that thing. And I definitely still fall victim to that at times. But so often I'll look at something that I want in the world and I'll say, well, like, why do I want it? Like, what am I looking to heal? Like, what validation am I seeking? So that's success in like the 3D space. Success in the internal space, in the internal world, man, success is to me is really just freedom. And in the sense of being there to drop off my kids, pick them up, be home for dinners, create a life of abundance far beyond anything I could ever imagine. And to not put a title or a cap or a number to any of it, to just know that stepping in alignment and walking that path is a version of success for me. Everything else is kind of gravy at that point.
Nice. So I know we covered Agora a whole lot, and it's pretty sweet, awesome. It's more than just a physical space. It's everything else that you kind of need. But I know you also offer coaching too. Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like?
Yeah, man. Thank you. I love this type of stuff, right? I love the conversation. I love peeling back the onion. And I think that something that a lot of people would gain is insight and perspective. I think that if someone said, "What kind of coach?" I'd say, "I'm an insight and perspective coach." I'm not. If you want a six pack, I'm really not your guy, right? Like maybe we can get over some health stuff, but if you want to gain more insight and perspective to life, I think that's the most valuable thing that you can gain, right? Learning your blind spots, but having someone challenge the way you think. I got a certification in life coaching during COVID. I was going to go back to school and get my master's in mental health therapy. I was like, before I go, drop all this money on a master's, let me go see if there's something I want to do. And in hindsight, I didn't realize, I mean, I like psychology was my minor. I look back, I've always been journaling without even realizing that I was journaling. My parents moved a few years ago. I was rifling through some stuff. I was like, oh, I always was like, this was always me. I just kind of lost this version of myself. So I do one-on-one coaching. I'm very nonchalant about it. It's like, hey, you want to meet once a month? And that's where the consistency piece is so important for people. But I also know that a lot of people, and I've spoken to them about like their therapists, and they're like, well, they're so rigid and like life throws curveballs at you that you can't avoid. So I don't want to be another stressor for people. Like that's not what I want to do. I want to add value to people's lives. So yeah, just offering people like an opportunity to sit with no judgment, empathy, and gain some insight and perspective and alternate ways of thinking in a very candid, almost gestalt therapeutic way, but with a tinge of humanistic psychology, I guess.
So, because I know there's a lot to the Agora ecosystem. So, if somebody listening right now is like currently in some stage of like a messy middle of project or life thing kind of going on, what do you recommend people kind of start with? Is it like just sign up for the newsletter and just kind of consume some of that? The podcast, is it dive in coaching with you, or is it like, hey, come in and start hanging out in the community space?
I think it would be, man, that's a good question. I think it'd be just come in, have a cup of coffee, right? Get around some people, chop up some thoughts. Yeah, the newsletter is awesome. I do a newsletter at the beginning of every month. Each month we have a theme going into the groups, kind of just give us some framework. This month was abundance. Next month is alignment. And just kind of give us some ideas of, some talking points, some reflection points. But let's stop in, grab a cup of coffee, like, just come hang. I call them brew for dudes. It's Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 to 11. We're just kind of like, bring your laptop, grab your coffee, come hang, get exposed to some conversation, and take it from there. See what feels right. Again, I'm very nonchalant about these things, but it's just like life is so stressful enough. Just step outside your comfort zone and have a meaningful conversation about it over a cup of coffee and see what you're called to do.
Nice. I like it. Yeah. Just kind of come in, like embrace it, just jump into it.
Yeah.
Quick question: Are you taking on new clients, and if so, like, how do people find you? Like, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah. So I do have a very limited client because everything is so like swamped right now in the most amazing blessing ways. So it's like my bandwidth is like, so right now I have 3 clients and, I'm always like open to taking on more. But that would just be kind of going through Instagram at Vinny Brusco, DM me. I do have like a jot form thing that I send out. Every once in a while, I'll throw like a little post up there for people to sign up. So that's kind of the best, easiest way to get into contact with me if you wanted to find out anything more about things that I'm doing.
Sweet, sweet. And I just want to thank you for taking the time to kind of come in. I know you're busy. Life is stressful. There's a lot of projects. Everything's kind of fighting for our attention. And I know we've been meaning to try to get this kind of on the books, and I'm glad we
Yeah.
finally did. I thought this was great conversation, a lot of insight. And if anything, it's just a really great talk between two dudes. And I can see where like the Council of Dudes was like such a great idea and everything too. So I appreciate you taking the time and coming on and sharing with everybody today.
Dude, thank you so much. And you bring up a great point of like, oh, we've been talking about getting this on the books and doing this. And I think that's like one of the most powerful things. Like, yes, like just put it out there, put out what you want to happen. And then versus forcing it, like it's got to be on this date at this time at this thing. It's like when it's meant to happen and unfold, it will. And it will be the right time at the right moment. And it will be beautiful and wonderful and perfect no matter what it is. So thank you for having me, number one. And I appreciate your patience with putting this on the books. And I look forward to having you coming on the Council of Dudes and diving in as well.
Yeah. And before I let you go, though, I want to ask you one last final question.
Yeah.
He's 16 right now. So, like, let's throw it ahead into year or 2026. I think I said 2016, but 2026 right now, time of recording. Let's fast forward to 2040. What do you want
Wow.
people to be thinking about, or in like, what do you want people to associate Agora with?
What comes up for me immediately, which is, again, not to be so grandiose, a cultural resurgence of a true man. And not the men that were in the 50s and 60s but like true stoics, going back to a space of questioning thought and community and open dialogue and getting past the cultural norms and expectations and programming that we're so privy to receive, and allowing people to have dialogue without judgment and not taking things so personal. You're allowed to think the way you think and believe what you believe, and I'm allowed to believe what I believe and think the way I think. And no one's right and no one's wrong, but we have to have the conversation about it because that's how we all grow. And I could say, oh, I never thought of it that way. And you could say, yeah, I don't agree with you, but I never thought of it that way. And it's that insight and perspective that we get that all allows us to become better. So not to be too grand about it, but I love to just see it as 20 years from now, Agora is looked upon as just a place that was brought up through culture that allowed men to become better versions of themselves.
Boom. I love it. Vinny, dude, thank you again, man. This was awesome. I really appreciate it. So I'm looking forward to having you back and looking forward to connecting with you again soon, man. It's been
Dude,
too long.
My pleasure. And I have to give you a compliment. You have the best, like your hair is what I want in my life. I had to cut it all because I was trying to do like the hockey hair, but it was just turning into a mess. So you have great hair. But dude, you always, I know, seriously, you're always like a breath of fresh air. Every time I talk to you, just like, you're just very sure of who you are. And you're very organized you're very organized and just, dude, I love the way you show up in the world and I appreciate you having me on and let me share a little bit of the things I'm doing. So thanks again, man. I appreciate it.
Of course. Of course. All right, guys, that's it for today. We'll talk again soon. Peace, 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 peace. That's all for today's episode of Surviving the Side Hustle. If you found value here, please don't forget to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening from. And please create a shared success by helping us share this episode with someone who you think would benefit from today's conversation. And finally, don't forget to connect with us at survivingthesidehustle.com and give us a follow on socials so that we can take part in following along in your entrepreneurial journey. Until next time, remember, success doesn't require a complete sacrifice, just strategy, momentum, and the right support.